My guest is Laura Carter, Chief Librarian and CEO of Kingston Frontenac Public Library. It's so nice to meet you.
You too. Thanks for having me.
You've got a big event coming up, and it's so exciting. Freedom to Read Week.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So this is an annual event that showcases and platforms and really celebrates that everybody should have the freedom to read whatever they want without restriction. And so it's an annual event in Canada, end of February to the beginning of March, where we really put a push on the values of intellectual freedom and what that means for libraries and for our societies.
And for this particular one, this is so cool. You've got various people from the community who are going to read sections out of books that were banned.
That's right.
And I am so flattered that you've asked me to be a part of this. I can't wait. I'm so excited about it, up there with people who are way more important than I am, so I'm really thrilled. But some of the books, Catcher in the Rye, Handmaid's Tale, Animal Farm, they're basically a lot of classics that do fall under the challenged or banned books. But it's pretty cool.
So there's a wide range, like you said, those are some of the sort of most common or famous banned books, and there's a wide range of why people look to try and have materials censored from public libraries. So if we look more recently, there was a period in the early 2000s where there was the Harry Potter series was the most challenged book in North America for promoting witchcraft, wizardry, and so people really objected to that, saying that that was anti-Christian or against their beliefs because it was promoting sort of those ideals that they didn't agree with.
That comes as a big surprise to me because she got a whole generation reading again, picking up a book and reading. So I am. Wow, I didn't realize that. What are some of the other ones that come up that kind of would come as a surprise to most of us?
I think sort of given what's happening generally in society these days, and particularly in the U.S., we see and we have over the last few years a huge rise in any books that have any 2S LGBTQ content being challenged, particularly for children and youth, and any books that are promoting anti-racism or is being seen as, again, perhaps anti-Christian or anti-white. There's been a rise in challenges of those. So there's lots of banned books lists that you can sort of find to see, and it does vary by geography a little bit. So in terms of some of the other books, I particular sort of when I'm looking at what I'm going to read for the event, look for books that are aimed at children and youth, because often it's I don't feel, the person who's looking to have a book banned, I don't feel that this is appropriate for children or my child sort of thing. And so thinking of books like Harry Potter or Bridge to Terabithia by Catherine Patterson is one that I read as a child, and so it was challenged because of some difficult topics. So there is some death, there were some bad words that were used, and so again people sort of put their own moral or ethical judgments on titles and say, I don't like this, I don't feel it's appropriate for me or my child, and therefore the library shouldn't have it and shouldn't make it available to anyone.
We don't want to tempt them with things that we don't want them seeing, but we're still getting into age appropriate. Like there's certain books that shouldn't be read by 5-year-olds and maybe not by 10-year-olds. They're just not appropriate today, but it doesn't mean they should be banned for across the board. Just use your own judgment that this is topics that maybe a 5-year-old wouldn't quite understand or doesn't need to understand yet.
Right.
Right, does that make sense?
It makes sense, and so in the Kingston Frontenac Public Library collections, for example, we do have children, teen, and adult sections. So, and even within those, particularly the children's section, there are picture books and board books. And so generally, if people are saying, well, my child is this, this years old or, is interested in this, we can help guide them to materials we think might be appropriate for the age or the reading level. But it's always up to the individual to decide that for themselves and for their children. And so we've had, there was a Star Wars book challenged recently, not in Kingston, but at another library. So I was looking through the 2024 and in 2025 sort of challenged books list. And so with the objection that it was violent. And so, there's lots of cartoon violence in children's books. And yes, there's, lightsabers and battles in Star Wars. And it's entirely okay to say, that's not something I'm interested in my child reading, but where again we cross the line is that that's not okay for any child. So we don't restrict what people can sign out. So in you getting a library card or getting one for someone else in your family, that responsibility is on you to make sure that what you're borrowing or reading with someone else is appropriate.
And if parents have a book and they'd rather their kids didn't see it, it's up to them to kind of keep that book squirreled away so that the kids don't stumble across it and read something they are not mature enough to put in context.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we often see people who think that kids aren't capable of engaging with topics like death or violence, but I would say if you again look at the world and what some people's realities are, they are exposed to it, and so it is a way to have conversations with people, or for books that might be outdated, for example. So certainly there are some books that were published in the 50s or the 60s that we still have in our collections where, yes, they might be racist or attitudes, opinions may have changed. So Little House on the Prairie is one that hasn't necessarily aged particularly well. And so I know when I was a kid that was on TV and lots of people read it and maybe now are looking to read those with their kids. And so that's an opportunity as well to have a conversation with someone to say, hey, this book is portraying, this subject in a particular way, and weave in what your own family values are with respect to that if you're not agreeing with the subject matter.
We're not talking about adults here. We're not talking about books being banned for adults. Or does that happen?
Oh, yes.
Oh, it does?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
I would say
really?
it's probably more frequent that we get complaints around materials for children and youth, particularly in Kingston. But yes, absolutely, people all the time across the world are challenging. I mean, if you think of a lot of those ones that you mentioned at the beginning, Catcher in the Rye, I mean, that was a high school curriculum book at some point, Handmaid's Tale. But yes, absolutely, it's across all age genres, all points of view as well. So we're also starting to see sort of campaigns a little bit more. It used to be, one person would come into the library and say, I don't like this book, it should be taken off the shelf. And we do have an official form and process to review items in the collection. But now in the age of sort of internet and social media, you could go online and say, the library has this book, I don't think they should have it. Everybody go and fill out the form or complain. Or if you look at sort of more insidious examples of how censorship happens, sometimes people will just steal the book, deface the book, vandalize it, sort of things like that. And this is not, that only happens in the U.S. or it very much does happen in Canada.
I'm just, wow.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
So what's a book? What are some of the books I got? I want to go and get them. What are some of the books?
Okay, so thinking sort of most recently of some of our challenges. This is a couple years ago now. So we had a book called Irreversible Damage, the transgender craze that's seducing our daughters.
Oh dear.
And so this is a title that is an opinion piece from an American writer. She's written for the Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
So it is published by a more conservative press.
Okay.
And so we acquired the book based on a request for purchase. So we let people, in addition to what we buy, people can suggest books that get added to the collection. And so this is an adult title aimed at sort of a general audience. It is an opinion piece. It's not science or whatever. And so we did receive over 30 complaints about that title.
I am just so surprised that they don't think adults can make up their own mind. But people get a chance to make up their own mind by going to Freedom to Read Week at the main branch, and this is coming up on February 28th. It's a Friday.
Yes.
And it goes from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock.
So it's 10 until 4.
Or 10 till
Yeah.
4. And if you want to see me, get that.
What time are you on?
I'm around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My palms are sweating even thinking about doing this, but I get to swear in front of a whole audience. I'm excited. And it's at the library, and anybody can come and sit in and listen to passages from banned books being read. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, so it's an opportunity to raise awareness of some of the books that have been challenged. So we've asked our readers either to choose a book that maybe is meaningful to them, or we have a whole cart if they're not sure what they might want to read. And again, books for all ages will be read. So we've had picture books challenged, and then some people will read from novels, Catcher in the Rye, The Wars by Timothy Finley. And it's an opportunity just to remind people that it is a real issue, and it's really one that we need to safeguard in advance as well of people sort of coming for ideas or books, that it's not just when someone wants to ban a book that these ideals are under threat. It's always.
It's such a great idea, and I'm looking forward to it. I am, despite the sweaty palms, I am looking forward to it. And thanks so much for coming in to tell us about it.
Thank you, Donna.